Hi there, today I'm going to be showing you how I built this little aircraft here. This is of course a Japanese Zero, a Mitsubishi A6M. It was Japan's standard Navy fighter aircraft during the Second World War. There weren't that many around in the early stages of the war, but it did become Japan's primary naval aircraft. The army tended to use the Ki-43, which was the Hayabusa, which was their standard fighter, and there's a lot of aircraft misidentifications, and a lot of Hayabusas were mistaken for Zeros. So every time you hear of a Zero in combat, chances are, statistically, it was a Hayabusa, not a Zero. Although the two planes did look quite similar. It's in early war Navy colours. That's what I painted it in. It's in Chinese colours for operations in China. It first served in combat in the war against Russia. Not many of them, just a handful, but they did very, very well against the Russians, and then did equally well against the Allied forces. One downside to it is the Japanese idea of having a fighter plane was that you should outfly, outmaneuver, and get behind the enemy and destroy them. That's how you win combat. And so they didn't put any armour in their aircraft. And the Allies nicknamed it a flying gas tank, which it actually was. It just caught fire the moment a bullet hit it, basically, because the wing-mounted fuel tanks just didn't have any armour on them, and so they used to burst into flames. And the engine tended to fall apart as well when hit with cannon fire. So it wasn't all that brilliant an aircraft for later on in the war, but certainly at the beginning of the war it could outfly and pretty much outgun anything in the air. And the Allied forces seriously suffered from it, particularly the Americans and the British. The Russians slightly less so. The Russians faced them at the very end of the war, and they didn't find the Zero any bit of a problem with modern Russian aircraft. However, Russian aircraft serving in China throughout the war often did find themselves outmatched. And now I'm going to show you how I put it together. That's a top view of the aeroplane. It's quite simple. It's just the wings, the tailplane, the wings and the fuselage. It's quite simple to put together, and I'll show you how I did it. I begin with basically cardboard cutouts of the aircraft itself. There's two ways you can do this. I've said this in my other videos, but I'll say it again. You can print off a scale version of this and then cut around the edges, or you can do a bit of math and calculate the wing sizes and stuff with a calculator. I prefer doing the math because it's more fun. And a slight amount of ad lib. You have to slightly increase the certain features of the plane to make it look right, because if you just scale it straight down it can look a little bit funny. So this is going to go together like that. This is the main tailplane, which slots in here just like any of those little kits you can buy, and the balsa here will slide down the sides, and that will give it a bit of bulk. And the bulk's useful for when you put it together, because you're not going to be wasting loads and loads of modelling clay filling it out. It's actually already filled out for you. And now we will glue it together and see what it looks like when it's got some milliput on it. I've put the main fuselage on the Zero. That's basically the fuselage you can see there. I've got the air outtakes from the engine, or the jets from the engine, and the back of the tailplane. The underneath is still undone because you will be drilling a hole there to put fit it onto a flying base. The cabin is, the cockpit will be added last. I think the next thing to do is the tailplane and the wings, and we'll see how it goes from there. The tailplane's been completed, which is very handy because now I can grab the tailplane in order to manipulate the plane as I do the complicated bits. It's a lot easier to do the tailplane first, I've found, because you can hold on to the wings and things while you do it. So there's the tailplane nicely in place. And here you can see the finished version. So I have put the canopy on the top, stuck the wings on the side, and done the nose cone, the engine at the front. And that's what it looks like completely finished. There we have it, a complete scratch built 28mm Zero fighter. I hope this has given you some ideas for your own scratch building work, and I hope you've enjoyed the video as a whole. This has been Vespasian. Please click like and leave any messages in the message bar, and subscribe. That's it. Good point. Need to remember that. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed.